Hello and welcome to the MG EVs podcast, streaming live eventually on Monday, the 7th of December 2020. Apologies for some technical gremlins that made us join a little late today. I'm Andy Hall. Joining me tonight, we have the pleasure of Miles Roberts, Innovation Development Manager at Chorley Group, with us. Michael Fisher's here. Mark Holmes is here with us. And David Stewart as well. So, jumping straight in, we were chatting about this while we were getting the gremlins sorted out. Miles, thanks for joining us, first of all. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. We were talking about the battery heater update that has been applied to some cars in Norway. Mike Proctor's having it applied to his car in the UK here this Friday, he was telling us. What have you heard from your side about the procedure to install it? And have any of your cars at Chorley Group actually had it installed yet?
Right, okay, so no, we haven't actually installed it on any cars as yet. We've had a couple of inquiries on it. MG's made it clear that it's this update isn't a recall type thing, it's not a warranty issue, it's a bit like the comfort update. They see it as being optional. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, the description that I've got the document here from MG, and it says the software used in the MG ZS EV incorporates an automatic feature for both heating and cooling the high voltage battery whilst charging using DC chargers, and also cooling whenever else is required. The operating parameters for these systems are pre-programmed, requiring no action from the owner. However, in some extreme conditions, especially in the very cold climates of Scandinavia and the Arctic Circle, it may be that these generic parameters may not provide optimum heating parameters, and therefore MG has released some support software that removes the automatic function of battery heating and gives you manual operation via the nav unit. Important to understand, this new software will allow the owner to switch the high voltage battery heating on or off themselves. There's no automatic operation. So once they've installed this update on the car, it will cool. Obviously it's got thermostats and it'll cool if it starts out getting warm. In terms of switching the heating on, if you forget to press the button or whatever and you turn up to a rapid charger with, I don't know, 2% in your battery but a cold battery, it's not going to necessarily help you in terms of it won't be able to do much because, yeah, the battery's already low and you probably won't have enough to run the battery heater at that stage. And that's one of the things actually that I spoke to MG about this today, and they said that they were quite keen that we didn't install it on every customer's car, just because of that awareness that customers have, that they need to know that they're now in charge of heating the battery. And that if they select it by default every journey, it's going to have quite a severe impact on range. And some electric cars out there which do have battery heaters in that might operate in slightly different ways. So for example, Tesla, or I've got a Mercedes B250e as my wife's car. Those cars which have liquid cool and heating batteries, sometimes you use an awful lot of power to really just warm up the cells when you might only be doing a short journey. So case in point, I drove to the supermarket today in the Mercedes, a round trip of 3 miles, and my average was 1.2 miles per kilowatt hour, because an awful lot of power was being used to warm up the batteries and the obviously the interior of the car as well, and not actually an awful lot left actually being used for driving. It was downhill most of the way there. So, you know, the actual, if I turned all the heating off and everything, it probably would have, you know, been like 3 miles per kilowatt or better. But for it being, I say the battery heating isn't optional on the Mercedes. Anything below sort of 10 degrees centigrade and it's starting the heater, which is great if you're planning on doing a rapid charge. Ironically, the Mercedes that I have can't rapid charge, so that's not a benefit. So it means that, yeah, it can use a large proportion of your battery for short journeys. So if it was me and I had the battery update done, I think there might be about sort of 1 or 2 journeys a month that might warrant me actually using the battery heater, and the rest of the time I'd leave it switched off, because obviously if you're doing a 7 kilowatt charge, it's not going to make any difference really on your charge time. But in terms of obviously turning up to Rapid, I'm going to try and get the software installed myself on my car this week. And it'd be interesting to see how Michael Proctor tests it out. He's it fitted on Friday. Seeing how he gets on with his solution. I think that for the majority of people, it's not going to be necessary unless you're planning on turning up to a rapid charger early in the morning, first thing when you've not driven the car anywhere. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference. But we'll find out. We'll see what happens.
Oh, it was good. Sorry, can I just ask a question on that? Do you know if the software update is reversible? Like the Comfort 2, we were told, I believe, that if you opt for it, it's non-reversible.
Yeah, no, this is also a non-reversible update. So once you've reprogrammed the 6 ECUs that are required to update in order to do this, it's not able to put it back to being automatic function. That's why they're asking people to think quite carefully as to whether they're actually going to be something they want to use. And with it not being a warranty fix as such, with it being a sort of optional update that they think only people in really cold climates would require, there is likely to be a cost involved from the dealership. It takes about an hour to install, so potentially an hour's labour charge you're going to pay. Whether you're going to see that sort of benefit from paying, I don't know, 75, 80, 90 pounds, whatever your local dealer charges for labour, for the sake of the update, it's one of those. It's just got to sort of see whether you think it's going to be worthwhile or not. I
guess as well, having the benefit of you on the call, from a second-hand car sales point of view, if you get this diversion in sort of the cars where some have got this feature implemented, some don't, would that impact the resale value of the car positively or negatively?
I don't know if it affect the resale value as such. It makes it awkward because obviously if we were to sell to a customer and not advise them that this update had been done and that they're in charge of heating the battery, then they might find that they have really, really poor mileage in winter, in terms of really poor charging times in winter, because they wouldn't have the automatic function for them. So I'd ask people to think carefully as to whether it's going to be useful for them. Obviously, we'll feed back as much data as we can from once I've had the update and when Mike's had the update. We'll see how that goes. But I'd suggest that people hold off running into their dealership and saying, please install this update, because unless you live in the Arctic Circle or Nordic regions, it's probably not going to be vastly useful for you and could be detrimental in some ways.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. Sorry about that. Technical issues. I've been
worries.
iPad today.
Thanks for the update. That's great, Miles. So onto you and your role at Chorley. So your title's Innovation Development Manager. How did you sort of come into that role from sort of your previous background?
Yeah, so in sort of 2010, I was working as a technical trainer for a company which did training for garage mechanics on things like car diagnostics, air conditioning systems, that sort of thing. And we were doing IMI awards training courses, and we saw that there was a training course, a train the trainer event on for hybrid vehicles. So me and my training partner in the company decided to go on this train the trainer course, and we got trained up as hybrid and EV technicians, and for working with the high voltages and for doing repair and replacement of high voltage components. And so for about 5 years, through till 2015, I was traveling all around the UK and abroad sometimes to do training courses for this what at the time was considered quite a new technology, and it was primarily because the courses we were doing were not for Nissan garages and people who already got the training from the manufacturer. It was for the third party, the MOT stations that are doing working on Toyota Prius taxis, things like that. So it was sort of the aftermarket third party sort of side of things. And but we did some training for emergency services on extrication methods from high voltage vehicles, and I was fortunate to be able to go to the Caribbean to do some training courses also, which was all right. A week in Barbados is always pleasant. Yeah, so we were doing that for quite a while. But during that time, whilst it was all going very quite hectic and stuff and training everywhere, my youngest son was born, and I was here, there, and everywhere, not spending an awful lot of time with my family. So, end of 2014, my father passed away. I had a sort of bit of a reset, if you wish. Well, I sort of just thought, let's get some priorities sorted out here, and decided that rather than traipse all over the UK or abroad and not see my family, instead I'd try and get a job that was close to home, still doing what I enjoyed, which was working with cars and with technology and things. But and I happened to see this role as a Nissan innovation specialist with Chorley Group, and it was basically a Leaf specialist. They wanted someone who would sit in the showroom and answer inquiries from these weird people who wanted to know about the Nissan Leaf. And they'd interviewed a few people, and the people that were applying hadn't got any experience with electric cars, but they, maybe like mobile phones or whatever, that sort of thing. And anyway, I had a good interview. It went really well. And a couple of years later, having run a My Electric Nissan blog, and being quite active on Speak EV Forum and other places, and also with our other franchises that we have in group, starting with EVs. So we've got Kia, Hyundai, and now MG, obviously within our Chorley Group franchises, all of which offer electric or hybrid vehicles. My remit was changed from just being the Leaf specialist at a Nissan dealer to being the group innovation manager for the whole 9 franchises we've got and 5 sites. So it's good. So what my role involves is basically trying to make sure that the staff know a lot about electric cars, so that when the salespeople are talking to customers, they've got a half a sort of idea about what it is they're selling or offering to customers. Because the manufacturers do good training courses, but they do so many training courses on all the different cars, that sometimes, the EV stuff, if people aren't used to driving electric cars themselves, if they've got a diesel as their company car, they live in a terraced house, they don't drive one day to day, then they don't really know themselves what it's like to drive an electric car. And whilst it says on the training manual that the car gets 124 miles, you might not get that in real life. On the original Nissan Leaf, you actually got 60. That was a shock to a lot of salespeople who had been told on the training course it did 120 miles. So part of the training we do is to make sure that everyone gets a chance to take one home or for the weekend or use it. We've got actually a lot of people now who choose the EV as their company car as out of choice, because they find that they drive better than the petrol cars. And of course, there's a tax benefit and a fuel benefit as well, for them when they're driving and fueling the cars themselves. So on the whole, it's going really well. We do a lot of we try and do a lot of social media stuff through Chorley Group ourselves, and obviously on forums and things as well, on Facebook. And I do some YouTube videos from time to time on reviewing the cars to sort of give people an idea, which with the MG ZS worked really well, because we were one of the first dealership groups to actually sort of get our bum on the seat and test it. And we've sold, several hundred on the back of that. So it's worked really well for us.
That was actually something I was going to come on to. Sort of how is sort of taking on the MG franchise and the direction MG have gone sort of impacted the sales of electrified vehicles from your experience? Oh,
and MG now, I mean, this last quarter, over 3/4 of our cars we sold were electric for MG in the last 3 months. So it might be something like 82% of our sales for MG were electric last quarter. So it's fair to say that MG are pushing the electric cars a lot. They've got some really good products out there. The MG5 is a great car. I think it's got a real place in the fleet market as well as for family buyers. And I think that I'm looking forward to what MG bring out in the future as well, because I know that they've got some plans to carry on with electrification. So it's working really well for us at the moment. And really, when we took on the franchising, MG franchise, September 2017, I think it was. At that time, they didn't have any electric cars out, but we knew they were coming. So
yeah. And was that part of a strategic decision for the reason to take on MG?
Yeah, that was part of the decision we had. Part of the meeting we had with MG back in summer 2017 was that we knew that the electric cars were coming. The electric ZS we thought would be a really competitive car, and we were keen to get there. Obviously, having had a lot of experience with Nissan and electric cars over our 5 franchises, we knew that we could do volume on electric cars, and that we had successfully, as Michael, unfortunately Michael Proctor isn't on this call now, but he came from Croydon to buy his Leaf off me, and then he came back a couple of years later and bought his MG ZS EV from us as well. So we do get people not just from the local area but all over the UK coming.
And as I guess you're pretty well covered for I would say the reasonable end of the EV market with sort of Kia, Hyundai, Nissan, and MG. Probably only missing a Renault dealership to kind of get the set. Do you see that as kind of like an area for the kind of customers that you deal with, where that's where they're comfortable with EVs, and you wouldn't want to sort of be in the market selling the really expensive EVs?
Oh, I mean, we have to be realistic. We're based in the northwest. We've got dealerships in Blackpool, Preston, Burnley, Chorley, and Wigan. And while there are some very affluent areas around us, and in amongst those, there are also some areas where, at the moment, having an EV is difficult because you've got a lot of terraced housing. If you look at places like Burnley and so on, a lot of East Lancashire is a lot of terraced houses, and people don't have the driveways to be able to charge, and there's not necessarily as many public charges as they would like. So although it's an improving picture, that has been a bit of a stumbling block for us in some ways for local sales, and why we've sort of spread the net a bit further in terms of going online and doing a lot of social media type things. But I think with us, it's we've sold all sorts of cars. We've had a couple of Teslas in as Part X that we've sold, but we're comfortable at the area of the market that we're in. Expensive cars tend to have expensive problems eventually, and we prefer to be able to stick with the brands that we've got.
So that's great, Miles. Cheers. Anybody else got any questions for Miles?
There's one on the chat from Graham. Does the MG5 EV perform better than the ZS when charging in cold weather?
Good question. I haven't checked it this last week. I haven't taken it to a rapid charger to see. Due to many COVID-related reasons, mileage has been restricted over the last few months. Normally I was doing about 1,000 miles a week, and so far I've done about 700 miles in a month, if that. So I haven't had a chance to take the 5 to a rapid charger and test it in sort of 2 degrees, 3 degrees weather. So I'll have to steal the car off the dealership and try it. I'm not sure is the answer.
So out of the 3 sort of electrified cars that you've driven and test driven, I've seen some videos recently of your HS plug-in hybrid expedition with your kids and driving that around. How do they sort of compare to sort of what would be their kind of direct competition? I mean, I could see with the HS they're kind of almost looking to replace the Outlander PHEV with that car. It seems to almost be a cookie cutter kind of like for like style of car, but slightly better.
The HS has got some. The HS plug-in hybrid has got some really good features. I mean, the interior is a lovely place to sit. It's a really, really nice upmarket interior, and it does feel a step ahead of where the ZS is currently. Although those sort of features will tend to sort of dribble down as the cars get refreshed over the coming years. The HS plug-in hybrid, the only restriction I find with it, and it's something that I've referenced on, I can't remember if I put it on the video, but I've tested it, is that it doesn't have a source of heating apart from the engine. So if you want to use the heater, if you want to drive the car in this sort of cold temperatures and you put the heating on, the engine's going to start. So to get on my video, I think I did from Skipton, where I live, to Burnley, which is a distance of about 20 miles, and I did it without the heating on, and so it got there and did a whole lot of other driving, and it got halfway back, and I think we did 37 miles on a single charge without any heating on at all. but that was when it was sort of 10, 11 degrees outside. And if you tried it, when it was 1 degree today, it'd have been very cold. So
Yeah.
When I tried it with the heating on, I got 20 miles to Burnley with 88% of the battery remaining, but with an average of 42 miles per gallon. So it's basically a petrol hybrid car at that point. It's basically just being a straight hybrid rather than being a range extended electric vehicle, as you'd kind of hope it would work if it had an electric heater. I know that's partially down to the climate that they have in China versus here, that they that perhaps don't think about the really cold weather quite so much. But I think that it's a shame, because I think that if it had an electric heater, I think it would have been a lot more practical car in the wintertime. I think that at the moment it's a good option if you want to be able to tow anything, because obviously it's got a 1500 kilo tow capacity. It's a really nice size of car. It's a really, really nice car to go. Get one of those rather than getting the straight petrol one all day long. But if anyone was thinking, I'm going to change from a ZS to get the HS plug-in hybrid, unless you need to tow anything, my verdict would be that you'd probably end up costing yourself quite a bit more in fuel, particularly in the winter time.
So I guess it's kind of a good pointer in the direction that MG are going with their interiors as well. And I think sort of between that, from the ZS to the 5 to that, you can obviously there are different price points, but you can see that there's quite an evolution in what they're trying to do with their interior quality.
There is, yeah. And if you look at the obviously the petrol ZS got an update this year, cosmetically, some slight tweaks on the outside. Internally, it got a new interior with a new sort of, the similar navigation unit to what you find in the HS. That update will be coming to the ZS EV in the future. They're made in different factories, so that's why it's not happened at the same time as the petrol version. So the ZS electric is going to get the update facelift to match the petrol version at some point in the next 12 months. And I think that will sort of step ahead. I mean, already the ZS electric was better interior than the old ZS petrol. So I think you'll see, it's one thing you see with China is that they seem to try and move things along a lot quicker steps than what you see from, like the Duke was out in basically the same format for about 14 years. With MG, they seem to be doing quick facelifts every sort of 2-3 years. They're not fixed on your sort of 6 to 8 years timescale like most manufacturers. They seem to be doing it in half the time. And we're seeing that. I said 3 years ago when we took the franchise on, MG are basically doing what Kia did, but over a shorter period of time. So Kia started off with some cost-effective yet perhaps more basic cars with scratchy plastics and things. And then nowadays, Kia's, you can spend an awful lot of money on a Kia Sorento if you want to. They're sort of like towards £50,000. So, and they've got some real, sort of Range Rover comparisons being made there. So, I think that SAIC and MG are doing a similar sort of thing. That they're accelerating this quality drive to get volume, but also to increase the quality of the product.
Can you see them bringing out a full electric HS model in the future?
Not in the immediate future. There will be in the long-term future. So sort of 2-3 years, there will be an electric HS-sized vehicle, whether it will be the HS itself or whether it will be when they launch a new vehicle in that sort of size later. MG's strategy is clear. They want to go electric, and they expect 50% of their sales next year to be electric, which is massive when you compare to other manufacturers. The one good thing for MG is that they don't have any diesel cars to worry about, so they've got any diesel vehicle sales. And with the launch, obviously, of the ZS EV, the 5 SW, and the HS Fab, they're all moving that way. There will be the MG3 will be launched as a compact EV at some point. There will be other electric vehicles coming out, in different sizes from MG. And certainly we're really excited about it. Looking forward to putting these cars in our showroom.
Thank you.
And obviously, Sorry, go ahead, Michael. No.
Yeah, another one from chat. Does Chorley Group have any dealings with Maxus, as in the e-deliver free? And if so, will it come out as a people carrier to compete with the Nissan ENV 200?
No, Chorley Group don't currently have any ties with Maxus or LDV. There is an LDV dealer based up Manchester's way, and they cover quite a large area at the moment. Being commercial sales, they're really sort of just starting off now at the moment with LDV, but I don't know if there's a people carrier version coming. It's possible, but I haven't heard anything about one or seen one.
Cool. And also Emotion. Any news?
Looks beautiful. I would love one myself. I have no news whatsoever about whether it's coming or not. Every time I ask the question to the management at MG, I get told to stop asking questions about that car. So I can only assume that they are working on it and they want to bring it to market, but it's just not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Cheers. Mark's asking a question, which I think is quite a good one. Do you want to ask that one, Mark?
Yeah, I can do. It's just, there's this real thing about range at the moment, and whilst I love my MG ZS EV, it's sort of borderline for me at the moment. But again, as and when battery technology develops and grows, and we know it's growing at quite a fast pace, do you think MG will ever be in a position where they would look to offer, shall we say, battery upgrades to existing customers, to extend what they've currently got, or to swap out and exchange for bigger packs?
I'm not sure where I'm at with battery upgrades, because I know there are obviously a couple of firms now which are offering battery swaps for older cars like the Nissan Leaf, for example. And I've seen recently that a 24 kilowatt hour Leaf has been upgraded, an original Gen 1 has been upgraded to a 40 kilowatt hour battery from the Gen 2. I'm not sure where I'm at with that, because the cost at the moment for me, I mean, I'm not just saying this because we sell cars and we get paid for cars, but for me, if you're looking at a car which is, let's say in the case of the Leaf, a 24 kilowatt hour Leaf, which has a market value of say £6,000, and you're looking at spending £8,000 on that car to give it a 40 kilowatt hour battery, but there will be a 3-month warranty on it, and if anything else breaks, you got to pay for that on top. I just think for me, it's a big chunk of money to spend on something that you haven't got an awful lot of warranty with. And I know that there are people out there who get classic cars and they spend thousands on them, and I can, so MG owners, people that have MG BGTs, and they'll buy them £1,500 and they'll spend £12,000 or more on them, and it'll be worth 8 at the end of it, and they've done it for the love of it rather than for any financial benefit. But I think that more likely for me is that people would tend to say, okay, well, look, I've got this MG ZS EV, it's 8 years old, the battery warranty is expired, however the car still does 130 miles range, which is perfectly serviceable for someone as a second vehicle, and it's at the price point now where it's for someone to consider as a second vehicle. It's maybe down to that sort of price point where it's sort of, let's say 6-7 grand or maybe less, I don't know. Then I think that people will perhaps buy a newer car rather than upgrade the old one. My range, I said my battery size, what I actually need. If you'd asked me in February, I'd have said, like, I'd really love a battery that does 200 odd miles, because I do 1,000 miles a week. And here we are at home, or with a green screen. But here we are, at home, and my mileage has dropped down to sort of 10-15 miles a day at a push, or in some weeks where I'm struggling to do 10 miles in the week. So it's I think that everyone's going to have a sort of bit of a reset and think about, well, what they actually need out of the car, what range do they actually need, and is it worth spending £8,000 more to give you an extra 50, 60 miles, let's say, or 80 miles or 100 miles, whatever it is, for those 3 days a year that you actually need that extra range. For me, it's like, it's like when Nissan did or when they haven't now done the 62 kilowatt version of the Leaf versus the 40, but the price differential is £5,000 on the new car. And you think, well, £5,000 buys you an awful lot of hire cars from Avis or whatever. You can get an awful lot of hire cars for those. If you're thinking, well, occasionally I do those journeys where I need to go to Scotland, well, hire a Tesla. It's going to save you, even if you do it 3 times a year, it's still going to be a lot less, over 5 years than £5,000. So if you're doing the mileage every day, if you think that you're going to be driving, a thick end of 150 miles plus a day, then sure, get yourself a nice big battery. It's going to save you half an hour, 45 minutes on your charge time. If, however, you're doing more like 150, 200 miles a week, and the national average before lockdown, last year, the national average, 80% of the UK did less than 22 miles a day. So I think that's probably now revised down a lot further now. But in terms of 22 miles a day, that's a week without charging your MG. So it's how much extra weight you want to carry, how many extra cells you want to have, and how much extra you want to invest to have a bigger battery. Do you really need that range, or is it just vanity really? So yeah, battery upgrades are useful for really old EVs, and I think that when they did have the range, I used to drive I once picked up a 6-year-old Nissan Leaf Gen 1 from Edinburgh in part exchange against a new Leaf. So I drove the 40 kilowatt Leaf up to Scotland, and then I picked up this Gen 1 Leaf which had 8 battery bars left, and a useful range of 45 miles without any heating. And it was 46 miles to the first rapid charger from Edinburgh. And the last few miles, there was like a funeral cortege behind me almost, because I was going like 30 miles an hour on the 60 mile an hour road, just to try and drift into the charger. So yeah, I could see the point of upgrading that battery. Whether I could see it as being £8,000 worth it, I don't know. But I think that there will be companies out there. Muxan do them for the Leaf at the moment. I'd imagine they'd start doing them for other brands as well. But again, it's whether you're going to get the useful range difference, to justify the cost to yourself.
And I suppose then, thank you for answering that question. I suppose one further question on that same subject, to a degree, would be: do you think MG will do what a lot of the other manufacturers are doing, which will be give the consumer the option that we do, say, a 44.5 kilowatt in this particular model, but we also do a 55 or perhaps variants in battery sizes? Or do you think they'll stick with what they're currently doing, which is, this is the vehicle, this is your battery size?
I think it could go either way, but I would be surprised if they offered different stages of battery. I think that MG quite like having a simple production line where they've got one variant of the car, or certainly very limited variants of the car. It helps them build quickly, it helps them build reliably, and it helps with obviously export as well, because you don't have as many variants to try and ship across and then work out what people want 3 months later when they actually land. So
and cost.
Oh yeah, and cost, yeah, totally, yeah. So I think that if they were to offer 2 sizes of battery pack, I think that people would want the bigger battery, but I think they prefer the price to the lower battery. So I think they've got to try and pick a sort of middle ground.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And I guess with places like the new GridServe electric forecourt opening up, if there's more of those types of rapid charger happening around the country, the need to have the long range between your rapid charge stops for the few times of a year that you do need, it might sort of dissipate for a lot of customers as well.
I mean, the biggest thing isn't so much whether you can make it to a charger, it's whether the charger is available or working when you get there. And I've been very lucky in most of my, I mean, I was doing 30,000 miles a year electrically for the last 5 years. And I've never run out of charge. I came bloody close that day with the Gen 1 Leaf from Scotland. But I've never run out of charge, and I've never been at a charger that was my last hope and it not worked. But clearly there are some areas of the UK where there are a lot of chargers which are not working, or are they're sparsely populated with chargers. And I think that there needs to be a rationalization in terms of payment methods and costs and all the rest of it. And I think that conversation should have happened a long time ago, and it's still not been resolved. I think that, contactless is easy. I think that particularly now that most people have got Google Pay or Apple Pay or whatever in the phones as well. So contactless is easy, and I think that having a fairly not fixed, but a fairly standardized charge cost across the network would help a lot. I've got 6 RFID cards and I think 12 apps on my phone, with the hope that one of them is going to work for whatever situation I find myself in. I'm paying, £9-8 a month to Polar. I don't think I've used one of their chargers this year, but I'm still paying the subscription just in case I have to do a journey and theirs is the one that I need and the app doesn't work and I have to, so it shouldn't be like that. It should be a lot easier. And I think that the infrastructure is what causes most headaches for people. The cars themselves are brilliant. And the issue, I think, is more that the charging networks need to up the game.
I mean, you've had that Polar subscription so long that they've rebadged it last week. It's now called
it's now Pulse. Yes,
yeah,
Pulse. Yeah. I only got the subscription initially just because I wanted to eventually get one of the Teslas or whatever as a week's loan car. I got a BMW i8 for a week. It was a massive disappointment. I didn't like it as much as I thought I might do, and it done 120,000 miles by the time I got it as well. So it was like most BMWs at 120,000 miles with various lights on the dashboard that shouldn't be there.
The one I sold you had no lights on the dashboard, I would like to point out. Well, at the point I sold it, it might have had the next day, but it definitely didn't at the point I sold it.
Yeah, these weird amber things that flashed on the side. I don't know if you've ever noticed those.
Those worked fine for me. I was shocked. Must have been one of those standard upgrades that nobody pays for. So the last topic we got on the list, green number plates. Apparently they were available from the 8th, or they are available from the 8th. Get my days across. Tomorrow, yeah. Are you going to be installing those on cars as of tomorrow, Miles, as you sell them?
Well, we've contacted our plate supplier. They can supply them. One of the questions we have is, and I suppose this is kind of open this up to the group here. Would you like green plates on your car, and if so, why? When currently there's no tangible benefit to it other than, as I put it, sort of smug virtue signaling by EV drivers, which I'm all for, which is why I'm getting the green plates put on my car. But I just wonder if that's just a group thing. Are we all into the same sort of smug thing as that's why we'd want a yellow or green plate? So is it the case that you wouldn't want a green number plate because you don't want to be singled out as driving something weird? I don't know.
You just clash with the black colour of my car, to be honest.
I think the other benefit would be to stop ICE drivers blocking chargers. You could instantly see it's an electric vehicle and is entitled to be there.
Yeah, but I think also the people are still going to block the chargers because they still block the disabled bays and the parent and child spaces and bus stops and everywhere else. So the people like that think it's okay to do that, think it's okay to do it all over the place, and a green number plate isn't going to dissuade them unless they're going to actually get a fine or something more severe. If they think there's actually going to be some sort of punishment for it, then they might consider it, but otherwise most people will just watch the world burn.
Yeah,
I think like most people, it's all very well and good saying about green number plates, and we've switched to EVs for a reason. But again, to change my number plates now to something with a green flash, one, yes, it would clash with the colour of my car, which is a good good point there, Stephen. But more importantly, what's the benefit? Why would you do that? There's got to be a benefit. There's got to be a saving of some description, isn't there, to justify it?
I think my question also would be, one thing we're not sure about is whether we should start installing them de facto on all electric cars we sell, or whether we should offer the customer a choice, because some people might not want the green plates on the car because, for example, they think it clashes. I think that the yellow plate on the back of my car clashes quite a lot, but I can't do much about that, unfortunately. But I think that some people might prefer to have a plain plate. I suppose in the same way, some people might have preferred to have an EU flag number plate or not. So depending on their political thoughts. So whether the green plate is going to be like that, where it's, some people want it and some people don't, I don't know.
Yeah, and you never know as well. People may look at it and look at the electric vehicles as predominantly being a dearer vehicle compared to your standard petrol and diesel, and therefore, you could find you being a victim of crime because of jealousy or something like that. That your vehicle stood out because it's got a green number plate as being electric, and people take umbrage to that, shall we say, and and maliciously damage it for whatever known reason. Yeah.
Again, so we're literally having this discussion at work at the moment as to whether we should fit, for example, all of our demonstrators with the green plates. Should we fit all stock cars, because it can be fitted to used cars also, and when we take a car into stock, we have to replace the number plates when we sell the car anyway with our Chorley Group plate. So whether we fit the green plates onto those used EVs, or whether people would prefer a plain plate, we just don't know which way to go. But obviously we need to order the kit, we need to order all the blank plates and everything to be able to do that. So at the moment it's just a bit of a, I just don't know which way the wind's
Is it going to be a full actual plate or just a flash?
No, it's a green, like the EU flag was down the blue strap on the side. So it's like, instead of that blue bit, it's a green, basically. That's it. So it's just a green flash down the side. So it's like, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
I think Mark's point's quite a valid one. That's twice I've pulled in to charge at an evening and had to justify myself to some total random as to why I was driving an electric vehicle. And did I know that diesel was far more economical? Thinking if I've got a green number plate, it's maybe warding them off.
I think the charge flap at the front and the cable plugged in is probably going to be a giveaway as well.
True, I suppose.
I think that, I think it's only to EVs. It's not for plug-in hybrids or hybrids, which I think is probably the right way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably go. I'd probably have the green plates fitted to my car because, like I said, I'm that sort of virtue signalling smug person that would like to do that. But I think that equally there's people who would prefer to blend into the background and not single themselves out. So,
and that's one of the great things about the ZS, that you can be stealth if you want to. It looks just like the petrol car from the exterior, apart from when you open the charge flap. I think they just give people that flexibility. I saw a thread on the website Hot UK Deals this week where they'll talk. Somebody posted about the swappage scheme that MG were doing, and some of the comments in that section, it's kind of like dipping your toe into the Daily Mail's comments thread when anything's put about environmentalism or oil or EVs. The disinformation is really strong. It's quite interesting. I was just reading through it thinking, should I comment? No, I'm not going to comment. So that's kind of like where I stand with those green number plates. I'm kind of like, I don't want to be commenting by having my green number plate. I'd rather sit back and watch people's opinions that they're quite welcome to have, that I know in my head are wrong.
Andy in the YouTube chat has just put, give us the option for green plates at least at first. I have not seen many want it unless there's the benefits, brackets, free parking, bus lane access, etc.
Yeah, no doubt that will come in time, but it's for us. Yeah, we'll do them on request for sure, but I don't think we'll perhaps go and install them as default on customers' cars.
Also, it was your Nissan Leaf, wasn't it? That was on as a demonstration vehicle. Was it Chorley Group that put the green plate on?
No, it wasn't us, I'm afraid. Well, no. As far as I know, we haven't got the kit in to do it yet, so no, it wouldn't have been.
So, David, just to pick up on sort of your charging, whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm up in Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally loving the ZS. Really chuffed I made the decision. We're not blessed with charge points, so you do have to plan journeys. And as Miles was saying earlier, it's great 5 days out of the week, just going around. I'm doing 20, 25 miles or whatever. But when I need to go to mainly Edinburgh, my nearest service station is Fraser's and Falkirk. So again, that's quite a job as well. So I'm finding charging en route to be a real issue. And I know I've mentioned it in previous threads and looking for assistance. I've got all the updates that I should have, and you know, top marks to Fraser's. They're absolutely fantastic. But I pull up at a rapid charger, and 4 times out of 10, I just do not get a charge. I can get a fast charge, but I cannot get it to recognize the car on rapid charge. It seems to still recognize the previous charge, and the handshake. It just a week ago in Nairn, Nairn's 18 miles away. I had 14 miles left, and stupidly, I had driven past a charger. I know it works well in Elgin to make it to the Nairn one, and my wife's mood was not great as we sat in the car park for an unnecessary 45 minutes to get 12 miles or something, just to make sure we got home safely. So that's a real issue for me. I said in one of my threads last week, we made the decision. We've got a small Citroen C1, and we're going to use that for longer journeys. And I feel like I've let everybody down. I'm ashamed, but it's just not working for winter. Having the headlights on, heater, windscreen wipers. It's just I'm only getting 90 miles range on a full charge.
And I think that's a fair comment to make potential customers be aware to, and I'm sure Miles' team do this. It's that, you know, the advertised range of a car is always less no matter what fuels it. But particularly with EVs in colder climates, as we'll discussing at the top of the show about the battery heater, if your car, you know, needs to warm itself up, whether it's the internal heating or heating up the battery, you're going to lose 25-30% of the range that you were getting in summer. And it's kind of like, you know, when you go to somewhere like San Francisco and it's a beautiful day and you think, wow, it's amazing if it's like this, and then you don't realize that for 4 months of the year it's really foggy. It's kind of like that with an EV. For 4 months of the year, your range is quite diminished compared to what you get in the sort of the spring summertime of the year. So it's definitely getting better, as Miles said, from 24 kilowatt hour Leafs up to where we are now. I think even with ZSs, they're not bad. I mean, but I think it's definitely something that, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of if you feel that you're not comfortable doing it. I think that, as Miles said earlier about the charging infrastructure, that's what's letting the cars down. The cars are quite capable if the charging infrastructure was there to service them, particularly at winter time.
I've changed my opinion of charger. I up in Scotland, we've got Charge Place Scotland, which in about 80% of chargers gives us a free charge. And it was, again, a time of severe stress, not getting a charge on a rapid charger. This guy was up traveling from England, and he said, what's this monopoly you've got? No, we haven't got a monopoly. He said, yeah, you can only get the Scottish Government card, and there's 1 or 2 other chargers. And said, in England, at least you will have options in any main town you go to. I'm thinking, damn, what's the point of getting something practically free when it doesn't work? Whereas I then was coveting my neighbour's ox.
That's part of the problem as well, David. I think is the fact that the charge has been offered for free means that there's no money for maintenance and for replacements and things. So, you know, with with Polo, at least they've had plenty of money thrown at them so that they're able to upgrade their chargers over time. But a lot of these Charge Place Scotland were put in, these chargers, rapid chargers were put in maybe sort of 6, 7, 8 years ago. And they've been stood next to the sea air in fairly harsh winters for 6, 7 years. And to be fair, the hardware that was available then isn't perhaps as robust and as up to date as it's you've got your, I don't know, Pentium 4s, whatever, that were in them then, and they do work for the majority of cars, but with some of the newer cars, like for example the MGs, they have some struggles with compatibility on CCS particularly, because often these chargers were put in just when CCS was in its infancy. I know that's a lot of the problems that Ecotricity had with their DBT chargers, were that the DBT chargers were installed and then CCS was added on as an afterthought, and so that's why a lot of them have compatibility issues. So I know the eVolt units that they typically use for the Charge Place Scotland installs, the big strong units, but they've been battered by the weather up there, and they could probably do with investment to replace, but at 25 grand a pop and no money coming in from any sort of revenue source, it's going to fall on basically taxpayers to foot the bill. And have they had value for money out of the ones they installed already? Possibly not. So I think that chargers need to be charged for. I live in Yorkshire, and there's a load of, in West Yorkshire, there's a load of free energy chargers that the West Yorkshire Combined Authority has installed. And yes, it's good to get on a free charger and you feel great, I've got £2 of free electric or whatever, but realistically, to be able to depend on these devices and know that they're going to be there for you when you actually need them, and not just because it's 5 miles down the road and you can get a charge for free, you need to invest in it. You need to pay for it. And we've had a couple of rapid chargers installed in my town in Skipton, which are on the what now called Osprey network, and they seem very reliable, and they seem to be well used as well in town, because I saw a Porsche Taycan charging on there the other day. So they are being used regularly. I'd say every time I go past, there's at least one car charging on the 2 chargers that are there. Sometimes there's 2 of them, and so 5 miles away there's free chargers, but here in Skipton they're not. You pay for them, but they work. And I think that 30 pence per kilowatt hour, everyone's willing to sort of pay that sort of level for a charge that works.
Yeah, and the advantage with Osprey is contactless. You can have it billed directly to your Octopus account. You can pay via Zap Map. You can go on their website and start the charge. They do all the options. While some charges, it's like, you got to use their app, and that's the only choice.
Yeah, and if the app's not particularly compatible, like I had an issue the other day where my rear camera on my phone stopped working, and the only way to operate a certain charger was through the use of an RFID code. Oh, great! I can't read out block white, block white, black white, black white in columns. I've got to, it needs the camera, but my camera was broken on my phone, and that was the only way to access it. So I think that contactless works. Charging 30 pence per kilowatt hour isn't out of the ordinary. I've used some Ionities at 69 pence. I wouldn't want to do it apart from an absolute emergency. I think that they are taking the Michael slightly, but I think that it's I say if it's a distressed purchase and you need it to get on your way, then you're willing to pay it, and I certainly was that day. So
Oh, just one last message on YouTube. Andy, he's looking to get in OVMS for his ZS, but early on there's rumours of an official MG app support. Of course, that's not happening, but is that going to happen with the refresh versions?
I have no information whatsoever about an app for the UK market. It's not something that MG are able to, as far as I know. MG won't be able to retrofit it to existing MG cars that are out there in the UK. Whether the refresh has that, I do not have any information at all at this point. I would like them to. Obviously, I'd like to be able to preheat my car, particularly when it's cold like it is this week, but I have no information. I'm sorry.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Miles, for that. I think that's probably a good point for us to wrap up. So thanks for everyone who's joined us on YouTube. Apologies again for joining slightly late with the technical gremlins. So thanks to Michael, to David, to Mark, Stephen, and Miles. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to catch us, and we'll be on next week, same time, hopefully next Monday, the 14th of December. Cheers.
Thank you.